you don't mind people observing you, then it's okay.
Well, have we officially started? Or do we need to, I guess we need
We've not called a meeting to order. I'm still waiting to see if some.
okay.
Go ahead before I call it.
Is Ernest-
Ernest is coming late. I don't know when he's going to be joining
Okay.
us, but partway through. So
You are-
the,
You are a leader.
yeah,
Mhm.
you'll have me.
We'll have you.
You can't vote on it because we're not in session yet, so.
I'll have you.
It's a way to consolidate power.
So maybe I'll just sit over there and like eat the sandwich.
There you go, yeah,
Okay.
you can just sit on the sidelines.
You just tell me what seems the most, you know, I'm new here.
Yeah, I'm not, but I still don't always know the answers.
Is this an okay spot? Actually,
Oh, there you go.
perfect. All
As a
right.
collective,
I was
we
just doing the
established
thing
our
that-
own social norms, and so, like, you are part of establishing the social norms.
That's right.
You've heard from other folks?
No. The only person I've heard from is Patty. Every way, you can't join virtually or otherwise, so.
Yes.
Like.
No.
It's
Today. So moved it to a folder because, you know, that's the smart thing to do, and then. I'll return that as much as easy on, there we go, there it is, I've got it. Yeah.
I'm gonna give it another minute. I think we can probably regroup.
Perfect.
Assumption that any late comers.
Thursday evening, mid-May was a tough night.
It is beautiful out there.
It is
Kind of nice,
stunning.
yeah.
Yeah.
Peering around the corner, just.
Yeah, I
thinking.
can't see it.
Mary's here.
Ah, Mary.
There's some tie-dye. Lots of flowers, floral out there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But what's in something? That's actually normally what she wears, so.
So it's easy.
Hello
Hey there.
We haven't called to order yet. We're about to. Is Ernest not coming today? He's gonna be here. I'm gonna leave the first bit.
Take the other one.
Then to go by Mary tonight and not
Not,
any of the other names.
have you used the
Posing.
other names before? You have to answer, have you ever used any aliases?
Mm.
This look is great.
You what?
Your look is great.
Oh, thank you. I hate when you have to wear real clothes.
You look very
Avoid
coordinated
that.
and still comfortable and still lovely, like all of the things.
I try to avoid anything but pajama pants if I can. Ooh, sandwiches.
Yes, there are some images. And pronoun pins, if you would like one. And you may be able to find them in multiple colors that.
Is the
represent
parking
your
lot-
identity. Yeah. and this
So no,
is
I
also
think you're kind of on the early side.
Okay.
Good catch.
So, but it was filling up.
You're too strong.
And wonder couple issues. getting
I've
around.
gotten, I think, with you.
No. All right, I'm gonna call us to order at 6:37 PM. Good evening, we're the Human Rights Commission. I don't know if we have anybody online that's joining us, but if so, you're very welcome. And I'll ask Todd to do our roll call.
Happy to do so. I think we're expecting Ernest, but Ernest is not here. Okay,
Here,
thank you for serving as interim chair this evening. Mary? Here. Charlie, not here. Angela is not here. Patty, I know is not going to be here. Catherine, I haven't heard from. Suzanne
I'm here.
and Heather.
I'm here.
all right. Next is to recite our mission, which you might know by memory at this point. If you're ready, we'll recite. Our mission is to act as a strong advocate to justice and equal opportunity by providing citywide leadership and guidance in the area of civil rights.
Dare I ask if we have a quorum?
We do not yet.
Oh,
One more and we'll
All right.
do it. Yeah.
well, the parking was quite bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a concert next door.
I think if we have one, if once Ernest gets here, we should have a quorum.
Yep,
We'll be able
it's
to take
5 or
actual steps
greater.
and stuff. Okay,
Mhm.
5 or greater, right.
Yep.
But in the meantime, we can do public comment. Public comment is open to in-person attendees only. And since we do not have any in-person attendees, I will move us into, I guess I'd say the approval of our minutes, but since we don't have a quorum, we're unable to do that. So I'll move into business matters. Chair update, we are pushing until later, once our chair arrives. And so I guess we'll move into the OHR staff report.
Great. Lily, would you like to go first or would you like me to go first?
I can go first.
Great.
So we've had a few of our own organized education and awareness events, including the groundwater training, the community read panel, and the fair housing presentation. All of those went well. Thank you to those who participated. I'm starting to plan education and awareness events for July surrounding Disability Pride Month. So if anybody would like to help think about what those events will look like, let me know. And one other announcement is I am participating in a Connected Communities Learning Cohort, which will be a year-long program to connect 15 civic leaders around the country who are working on the same sort of mission that our office and commission work on, to just collaborate and share ideas and talk about strategies and skill building. So that's exciting.
That's really cool. Can I ask a question about that? Sure. Is it civic leaders, meaning just anyone in local government, or are you looking specifically to human rights commissions, or is it really a broader umbrella than?
Broader. It is local governments and nonprofits and really just anyone who's working in some sort of organization that's working on like repair and relationships and equity. And I believe that's it for this section from me.
Great, thank you. Let's see, just a couple of things. I was gonna point out that, Shael Chapman and Saad Khalifa, Shael our investigator in training and Saad our intake intake specialist. They both finished, the 32-hour EEOC intake counseling course recently.
Right.
So that's really exciting. So they got a lot of new things that we're trying to implement in the office, from that training, which is great. And then Shaila also just finished doing, an investigation training program through Cornell that was an online course. So that's exciting. So we're just like building skills all over the place. It's great.
I love that.
Is that the eCornell,
Yeah,
yeah, we do, my office uses that.
That's-
Yeah.
that seemed pretty in-depth. It's been a long time.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I messed up once thinking I could just like knock it off in a Sunday afternoon and it turned out it's very
A
demanding.
lot of work.
How many Sunday afternoons?
Yeah, it was,
Yeah.
but there's a date by which you have to complete it,
Yep.
so, yeah, so there was a lot, I was cramming again.
Yeah, and I think these were actually like, were they live courses for you? I believe these were also live.
These were all online.
Okay, yeah, these are online, but like, I think, like. Live presentations and then homework as well, so, yeah, we do a lot. To
great.
get through that, so it's exciting.
Yeah, they're really good courses. though.
Yep. Catherine, welcome. Up to the cord and. Is it here? Do we have? Where is it?
How are you?
Oh, no.
You, oh,
Is it out?
You're
got fired.
Not fired,
No.
not fired, just somehow.
it's a weird way to
Not
tell
named.
people, right?
Yeah. Sorry, you're off the commission.
Let me see if there's.
Ceremonial.
Or any of the ones that are out, are they stuck together?
I don't have anything stuck
No.
to mine.
Well. well,
You may
regardless.
still be in the office. We'll,
We all know who you are.
are you present?
And I am present,
Wanna
to
mark this
our
present.
vast audience.
And now we have a
Just
quorum.
To be,
Quorum.
sorry.
It's all right.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And then last little announcement, these are all just sort of celebratory things. Jenny is graduating
Yeah.
college, so that's
Yeah.
exciting, and going off to a graduate program in forensic linguistics in New York, so
Wow,
pretty
Incredible.
exciting,
Yeah.
yeah, so lots of
lots of great things
celebrations,
happening.
yeah, for our team.
Yeah.
And when does that transition take place? The end of summer or? before?
So graduation happens like very soon, like, do you remember the date? I can't remember the date off the top of my head, within the next week or so, and then heads up to New York, I believe in August, like beginning of August, so. We'll see her a bit, in the office still at the end of July.
And we have her doing a presentation to us at some point,
Yes,
right?
she's also, yeah, she delivered her, that was her honors thesis,
That's
she
right.
delivered that, and we got to sit in on that, virtually. That one, well, was informative, like a 93-page paper to read about that, and she'll share that with you guys in a presentation, so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's informative, I thought
That's
it was
great.
pretty great, so. Other than that, I don't really have any other announcements to make, so if you have any questions about the report or anything like that, let me know.
I was looking over the total number of your incoming and outgoing contacts.
Yeah.
Now that April is complete, it looks like you had like a triple, like. It tripled from March to April. I was curious if that's something that you typically see going from winter into spring, or there's something else that you think might be driving that.
Yeah, I think
A
that,
lot more contacts.
Wait, where are you?
The second. The second row of the measures chart.
Okay.
On page.
I got it.
Yeah.
Or, well. On page 18 or?
page 18.
Page 18, PDF.
Yeah, I think that's primarily driven by one or two people right now. And so sometimes what happens is, so this is logging like, every like incoming contact that's happening in all of our responses. Oh, that's just average incoming, sorry, that's all the incoming contacts. So, yeah, what's happening there is, that's including emails. So I
Okay.
think we have one individual right now who's emailing us quite a lot, so. That bumps the numbers,
Gotcha.
so it looks maybe a little bit artificially inflated for that reason. I don't know, yeah, I don't know why the decrease per se in March, but I think that we weren't getting those emails in March, so,
Okay.
yeah. There you go. Ernest is here, great.
See. I will retrograde our agenda and go into our minutes now that we have quorum.
Mhm.
Kind of forget how to approve minutes, but. make a motion to approve the minutes from April 4th. We're about to approve some minutes. You want to step in?
So moved.
Want to tag in?
Nope, not yet.
Okay,
I move to approve minutes from April 4th, 2024.
Second.
Shall we vote? Okay. Ernest, welcome. And
Hi.
how do you feel about the minutes?
Oh, approve.
Okay. Wolfgang,
also approved.
Mary?
Approve.
And jumping down, Catherine?
Yep.
And Suzanne?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Okay. Minutes are approved.
We also have to approve our regular meeting minutes from April 18th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
All right, let's take it to a vote.
Okay, here we go. Ernest,
Approve.
Wolfgang,
Approve.
Mary,
Approve.
Catherine, Suzanne,
Approved.
and Heather.
Approve.
Right. So Ernest, we had a quorum partway through the meetings, we just went back into the minutes, and now we've already had the OHR staff report. So it is time for chair update, if you have things to share. And then we move into the work session after that.
Chair updates. In light of what has transpired at UVA, I haven't put anything out or said anything. Because I'm trying to get as much information as I can. Because everything is so muddy. As far as what is being stated by individuals that were there, and also what has been muddied by what UVA's administration is saying. They are not the same. And that is a problem. I hear you. And I know you were there. And to constructively put a statement out or say something that will not have us in the situation we were in before. I know. But I know that we have to make a statement. I know we have to say something. I know that. So I really don't know how to make sure we are doing our work as a commission for the citizens of Charlottesville, as well as the students at the university. So that's where I am on that. And I know that others have very strong opinions.
Is there some back history? You said something about again.
No, I just want to make sure that what we say, because my concern is the presence of our local police force being there in the capacity of setting a perimeter for state police.
The city police, oh, sorry, yeah.
Yes,
City police were there. They did set a perimeter. They also actively arrested many people. They are the arresting officers for many people. So they were actively involved, not simply, as has been said, setting a perimeter.
Okay.
I also, well, I think there are things we can do other than make statements in this case.
Okay,
I'd love to talk about
okay,
our other options.
okay. And so, I look forward to, the work and others things. I look forward to the work that, Lily and Todd have done, to get June 6th prepared for us. I'm hearing from Todd that we have a lot of response back from, individual programs and people. So, I look forward to that conversation as well. That's what I have right now. As far as a chair update.
So Ernest, do you envision this as the time to talk about what we might do in response to the actions at UVA, or did you envision that at like a different place in the?
So you've already given the OHR report, correct?
Mhm.
And the next part is the work session, correct? All right. Let's go.
I do understand the sort of discomfort of issuing a statement when there's sort of disputed facts. I personally would be very comfortable making a statement because I think there's been kind of demonstrably false statements by the university that are really, in my view, unconscionable. I will say in my day job, we've issued some, Freedom of Information Act requests to get data. But I think we could also, invite people who were there to come and give testimony. We could have a special hearing on the issue. It feels like there are things we could do, even if we don't get to sort of the statement that I would feel comfortable with, sort of condemning the actions, like what other things it just feels important for the Human Rights Commission to
Yes.
say our city police was engaged in this conduct that is at best deeply concerning and at worst maybe much, much worse than that. And presumably city money went into that and there were decisions made by city officials, and I just feel like it would be really wrong not to inquire more deeply at the very least.
Agreed.
I believe that the court records show that Albemarle Police, I'm not sure about Charlottesville Police, but there was the arrest of somebody for assaulting a police officer, and that was found in court to be there was no evidence, and the prosecutor had to admit that there was no evidence. Is there anything like that with the city police? Is there some way for us to call for
I don't know.
call for anything around that? I just know that, many of the protesters their charges have been dropped because of lack of evidence that they actually did anything violent.
And that part for me is what I'm trying to understand too. Is a lot of this could have been dealt with. Anyway. So. I go back to, I'll leave it alone. Anybody else?
I'm trying to think of our role as the commission.
Mhm.
And what message could we send to city council to address this? And just what's at the forefront of my mind is just preservation of freedom of speech. And making sure that we preserve that. I feel like we're very concerned to preserve that. Even when people are saying things to us that we don't want them to be saying. Not when it crosses over into hate speech, but we readily listen to people that we disagree with. We need to also preserve the rights of just anyone to be able to share. share their opinion, and I feel like the city got involved using city resources to infringe on the rights of individuals, and we could, part of a statement that we draft could speak to that.
I'd like to say that I agree with Mary. I mean, I think we could put a statement out, but I think we also have more power than that, and I think we should use the power we have. We have the power to request records, right? We have the power to ask, how much did you spend for this? Tell us how you made these decisions. And we have the ability to, as Mary said, to hold a sort of truth commission, I guess, right? To just have people come and be able to put on the record what the various versions of what happened. And that, I think, is, I mean, that would be, to me, that feels like this is money that could have been spent on housing, right? This is money that could have been spent on a lot of different things in the city, that in my mind would be much more in line with.
Then maybe, I'm just thinking, we are planning a panel in July, but it seems like we have blended the ideas of, you know, homelessness, wraparound services, and legislative priorities for our June panel, which sort of frees up space. And maybe it's appropriate to consider that time as sort of an investigative discussion with the community. Should also give us time to maybe get some information from Charlottesville Police, city manager, whatever the powers might be, that would share that information with us.
My only concern about that is that students will be gone.
Right.
So many of the
That's
attendees would not be here for July.
They're already gone.
Maybe they might already.
They're already gone. Graduation's on
Yeah,
Saturday.
they're gone now.
So finals are already complete.
We also opened it up to virtual attendees too.
I mean, yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
and obviously community members were a part of this and are
Right.
impacted by this, which is part of the reason we care too. But basically, it seems we have it now, we have it last week, right, which would have been timely. Or we have it in the space where maybe it's less timely, but maybe we have more information.
But with a truth commission, it doesn't have to be one day. It
Right.
can be over time, and you can, you know, deputize people to interview people. Not everything has to be, I mean, I don't know, we are a public body, but I don't know if everything has to be public, but you know, for some people, their privacy might need to be protected, and maybe they're just interviewed by one person, and then we have their you know, their testimonies you know, communicated and respecting their privacy and anonymity. So it doesn't have to just be like one event, is I guess my point.
and there may be legal issues, which.
I would imagine.
The people
Sure,
whose
there will be
cases,
lawsuits.
yeah, and the people whose cases have not been dismissed will,
Right.
Right.
their lawyers, I'm sure will tell them.
Yeah, April, August
August
15th.
How do you know if anybody else in the city is investigating what happened?
I've not heard of anything yet.
There was some discussion at the city council meeting, right, and heard, you know,
Yeah.
at least one
Public
city
comment.
councilor express concern. But, I mean, that would be another action we could take, which is to go to city council and ask them to tell us what they are doing to follow up on this.
That's why I'm asking.
They have
the
more
question.
investigative power than we do, although I'm not saying we should sort of give up our power. I'm just kind of suggesting that that we could go and say, you know, I mean, Michael Payne was very open and saying,
He was.
like, he had a lot of concerns about this, like, what does he know now? What has, you know, what actions have been taken? Has he spoken to the city police? Who made that decision to, you know, to haul out the city police?
I will just say, sorry. It was noteworthy that this was Albemarle County where this happened, right? This was not in the city of Charlottesville where it happened. There were visibly, at least, far more Charlottesville police than Albemarle County police there.
Right, sorry, it's I'm sorry.
The university is, yeah.
Welcome, yes, the university, that part of the university is Albemarle County. That's why it was handled in Albemarle County Court, even though the magistrates were confused about that.
That's a
I
whole
was
other
not-
conversation that
Yeah.
we'll catch up on another day.
Yeah.
Okay, I did not know that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because
So
I
they
think,
were sent outside of their jurisdiction.
Yes, I understand.
Mhm.
I see. Okay.
Which clearly required significant advanced planning, right? So like, when was that decision made?
And is our chief gonna have a town hall?
Everybody else
Those are
seems-
questions that I have.
That, you know, he
Yeah.
seems to, I mean, chief, I appreciate you. But you seem to do walking neighborhoods. I would love to hear your breakdown of how this all, because that's one person I have not heard from.
We could invite the police chief to,
Because I've heard from, you know, President Ryan and, you know, their statements from all their
Tim
admin
Longo, yep.
and that's everything, but, you know, if he had a significant presence of his officers there, I would like to understand, and if the fact he's out of jurisdiction, then I would like to understand how that decision, you know, is made. And why, you know, did anybody bring that up at city council on Monday night?
I don't know. I actually only read about
I
the
don't-
city council
yeah.
meeting the next day. I didn't watch
Yeah,
it.
I didn't watch it.
John Gathers spoke, but not calling any specific actor
Right.
for accountability.
Right.
Concern over the deployment of Charlottesville police.
Yeah.
What are our next steps?
Yeah, that was.
Is that
was-
where your head is?
that-
Okay, sorry, yeah.
No,
I
I
didn't
don't.
realize you were processing
No,
there, yeah.
no, I don't mind you.
Yeah.
Getting in my head and asking, because that's what I'm sitting there thinking too, is what are our next steps? What can we do?
I'm not saying this is like the obvious right thing, but I do want to know just sort of, you know, because I don't know all the rules about open, like, could we actually call a special meeting and have a hearing on this outside of our regularly scheduled, you know, monthly meeting? Like, is that within the realm of like lawful possibilities?
Just have to publicly notice it 3 days in advance and all that stuff, but yeah, you could do that.
Not to completely step on what we're already doing, but on June 3rd, I know we're already gonna be at the city council meeting to do the annual report to the council. That maybe, we may wanna, I don't know if we want to pull that together or push them apart, but I realized that we are already on the agenda in a couple of weeks. I can imagine,
How much time, I'm sorry,
no, go on.
how much time do we have on that?
That's a good question. I think usually try to present within like 15 to 20 minutes and then they ask questions. So it's like half an
Oh.
hour to 45 minutes, I guess.
So we
I
have
can't remember
time.
what.
I was like, oh.
It's real time.
You would have a platform.
Yeah.
I think we're planning to be there together.
Yeah.
So
Okay. All right, so. After we give that information, what do we want to ask?
Is there specific information that we need to be asking for prior to that? What our FOIA powers are?
Ask for, like.
We don't have to FOIA, we just have to ask.
Oh, okay. So, yeah,
I mean, can we ask things like what, you know, what did they bring with them when they arrived at the scene? What were they prepared to do and what, you know, what equipment did they have with them? And then, you know, the
what
question of
precipitated them going?
what precipitated them going, you know, how much did it cost, all of that, but
How much money was spent city resources?
Officers.
Should we craft a letter in advance of that meeting, asking those questions? Right,
Yeah,
to kind
I
of put
think-
them, I mean, my guess is that other people are asking these questions too. It just feels like it's important for a human rights commission to.
I've even heard people who were there have two different takes on it. I mean, depending on where you physically were. So there's, I mean, I appreciate the idea of like, what are all the things that we want to ask and better understand?
Do we know how many were there?
I put. numbers
How many
on
police
there.
are-
Yeah, like how many were sent there and, you know, what kind of training
Can
they
we
had.
ask why one of them was laughing the entire time? Because he
yeah.
said it was funny?
And we have that person's name.
Oh,
too.
you have that
Yeah.
person's name? Yes, I do.
And there are photos of that and video and things like that. That's-
Think that, Mary, I think like the idea of presenting, gathering your questions, sending those ahead of showing up at the meeting so that like I want them to be prepared.
Right.
That if we do present our report and then they may know that we're gonna follow up on that letter, or that Ernest may follow up on that letter during that period of time. I think that's a fair thing. Also gives them time to prepare to answer those questions. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Is that something we want city council to answer in the meeting, or would we want to like invite the chief to our meeting?
It's a great question.
I don't,
I mean,
that's genuinely, I don't.
Doesn't it seem like we would wanna request the information for, unless you think we should just ask them on the spot?
No,
maybe
no,
Request the
they'd have to
information
prepare,
first, so
yeah.
you have like everything possible.
Yeah.
And then and then the chief and then the city council, or then the city council and then the chief, I don't know. But you'd hope to get some information beforehand.
Chief, and if we don't hear a response, then we're prepared with that.
Yeah.
Also going to city council and saying, we have made an inquiry and we have not heard.
And what kind of inquiry are you making, city council? These questions?
Well, that's one, like I said, I'm very curious what is
Not
happening
sophisticated.
within the city,
Mhm.
in terms of conversations, et cetera.
Are we still brainstorming questions or are we?
No, I think we just need to go ahead and start filling them out. Send them in.
Yeah.
And Ernest, when you say send them in, do you mean to the police chief or to the?
To Todd and I.
Ah,
Yeah, we
okay.
can just
All
like-
right,
And then we'll,
got it.
you know what I'm saying, so then we'll put it all together. How you feeling,
Yeah, I could write 20 or 30 questions.
Me too. I'm working on it.
I'm sure we all can.
right, so but to be able to get, I mean, they're probably not gonna be able to answer that many.
I'm sure, I was kind of being flippant. but, you
I know.
yeah.
It's okay.
I'd be very interested to know what kind of directive came from the state as in addition, because there is some discussion about whether the governor made statements and or played a role, the attorney general.
It's just Charlottesville or not.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we know if we have a police review board, right? In
Mhm.
Charlottesville? Do we know if they're?
So I mean, I think we would have to take, someone would have to take it to them, right? But I was thinking about this as I was biking here late. I think our purview is different,
Mhm.
right? What they are thinking about is kind of very narrowly defined. And what we are asking are kind of bigger questions, right? Why were decisions made? This isn't about following policy or not following policy in the same way that I think the review board would be addressing it, and correct me if I'm wrong. But it's more about like there is a mutual aid agreement, right? We know that's there. We know CPD responds to things with UPD
Yeah.
in Albemarle. That's not an unusual thing to happen. But there are still decisions that are made, right? When they ask for help, someone decides how much and what kind of help to give. And clearly those decisions would make, because you could see very substantial differences between the three different law enforcement entities that were there.
Mhm.
And so I think that's like sort of in the scope of what I'm interested in knowing. Is how those decisions were made, why they were made, what they cost us. How they feel about it. And
Mhm.
I mean, and it seems like it would have had to have been made, you know, quite a bit in advance to get all of those folks there, right? As a,
police officers.
so what is like most useful to you is if we draft as many questions as, you know,
What you got?
probably will be too many, probably need to be edited down.
Yes.
And should we,
Discussion thread.
should we-
Pile them on.
come up with some sort of time frame that we
Yeah,
get it to
this-
you by?
I
Yeah.
think like,
Cause we,
I can make a
we're,
Google
what,
Doc.
what's today?
I think it's the 16th.
16 meetings on June 3rd. So, I mean, it'd be nice to have them. Just that, when will you be ready? Cause we don't have to talk about doing that. And do we have a plan to talk after Labor Day? No, sorry, not, Memorial Day, right? Yeah, Memorial Day. So we had that Monday before. So,
Yeah, what would you prefer? We can set a time.
so I'm thinking, if you guys can get us the stuff by the 27th, 28th, yeah, 27th, 28th.
I can't commit anybody else, but speaking for myself, I think I could send a bunch of questions well in advance of that if we
Yeah,
were trying to.
the earlier the better, but at least by then, because then we can begin to start to, now see if there's any similarities that anybody else has and find out which ones are, if you can rank them, meaning how important you really need this you really need this answer. Excuse me. You really need this answer. That will help.
Mhm. I think Wolfgang's pulling together some of the questions
have
that
a-
you've heard.
I pulled together summarizing, feel free to make changes to, to make an email thread.
That's great.
I do a Google Doc, but I don't think we're allowed to do that, so.
Well, can we do
can
some
make it-
on? I mean, I don't know how everybody feels comfortable about using Microsoft, whatever we have.
I can make a blank document as well. I just think people tend not to open the blank documents, just given how many of the things I've sent out that have been drafted that we've actually looked at.
Okay.
Because I can see what's looked at, so I'm just gonna do an email thread.
Okay.
Y'all got it.
Email threads.
Thank you. Wolfgang's like done.
Hands out.
It's your turn now, be called.
Blank documents I have.
Heather, I don't think she was calling.
I know, I'm like, okay, Heather, I'll do better.
It's never you, Heather.
Not this time.
You're a gem. Go have your moment. I'll have my moment. I'm not looking at a document attached to an email.
Alright. So, I know that doesn't, take care of everyone's concerns and stuff, but I'm hoping that's a start. Okay, so. Okay. All right, I guess we need to go into work, if everybody's good where we are right now. We need to move into a work session.
Can I just have one follow-up question?
Yes.
When we send the letter, are we going to make an effort to have it? I know it's public sort of as a matter of law, but that doesn't mean anybody would ordinarily see it. Like, I guess do we want to take action to actually get public attention focused on?
Well, if we send a letter,
Sharing it with the,
Press release.
Yeah.
press release?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think we should, but I'm asking the question because obviously, other
So not just put it on our website or the city
Right,
page.
but to affirmatively
to-
say, like, Human Rights
Yeah.
Commission is
to the Dale
concerned
Park-
about
to
this,
Dale
we're
Park
looking at
Justice.
this, and we're asking all the questions.
Okay.
Love it.
I'm happy to pitch in on that also. That's useful.
And I assume we'd be talking to Caroline and her team about press releases for commissions. I guess that's something you guys would help us with?
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Great.
All right.
I think it's a good idea because there is the danger, even though everybody is so riled up about this, there is the danger of it just dying, and not, and then next academic year happens and everybody's kind of forgotten all about it. Not forgotten, but like it doesn't get addressed.
Well, not just the next academic year, but the next outrageous, yes, situation that happens that, this wasn't, kind of talked about. That's my concern. is that side of it is, there was just so much in that was not done well. And there's so much I would love to say.
You could say it, Ernest.
You know. You call yourself the, I'm not gonna say that.
Great and good.
We'll put it in the letter.
Great and good, Ernest.
Other
Great and
people.
good.
Yeah, don't,
Well, I will say, I thought that the university's town hall was really appalling personally. I know that's not the like official view of the Human Rights Commission, but as an alum, I was really,
it was so controlled.
it was,
I think we'd have four.
it was really poor.
It was controlled.
I find the notion that backpacks on college campuses are somehow like inherently scary and threatening. It's like a very strange thing for,
Associated with historical events that have resulted in violence is the most. Right? Because they couldn't,
I hear you.
just for the record, I am associated with historical events that have resulted in violence.
I know,
We all, right? We live in this town.
we do. So this event brought back some not cool memories. For sure. So. Yeah.
well, thanks for starting that email thread. I think that'll be really helpful.
What you're gonna say, thanks for crinkling your sandwich paper noisily. And I was like, that's all right, follow me out. It was so loud.
All right. We need to review the proposed amendments to the Charter Human Rights Ordinance. We're in work session now. Tom, where we need to go? Or is that you, Lily?
Lily's gonna help out with
Lily,
getting it
come
up on the big
Oh,
screen.
there we go.
Yep. She's working technical magic.
Da, 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 da.
Flap my jaws a little bit.
Da, da. All right.
I'm gonna look at my screen, so I'm doing this the whole time. How's that sound? And we'll probably,
All right.
so we're gonna talk about amending the Human Rights Ordinance again. We can go ahead and jump to the next slide. So we've done this like 3 times now, I think. And there's, as we learn about how we do our work, especially in the office, we're constantly thinking about ways to like make the ordinance reflect what we understand, how the process should work. And obviously, we're also trying to enter into this Fair Housing Assistance Program Workshare, which has its own like sort of complexities around how the ordinance needs to read. Because we have to be what they call substantially equivalent to federal fair housing law. So what we're trying to do with this round of amendments is meet those requirements for HUD. Make the work that you do more clearly reflected in the ordinance, because right now it's split up into 3 different sections and we're trying to make that easier to understand. And then again, try to make our investigative sections more reflective of what we've actually learned and had experience with doing in the office. So in addition to that, there's general document revisions, like adding a table of contents, because thing's long now. It's like 38 pages long. It didn't used to be that long when we first started, but now it's that big just because of the things we need to include. Adding some page numbers. Apparently we didn't have page numbers before, but now we do. And then just fixing lots of different formatting and things that we found over the years that just needs to make it more clear, right? The bigger this document gets, the harder it is to process and read. Little things get overlooked when we do the revisions, so we're gonna fix all that stuff. And again, the main sections of the investigative procedures are in that section 2-4371 through 3. There's 3 different ones. One is employment, one is housing, And the other one is the other three protected activities, public accommodations, credit, private education, refining all those investigative processes, so they read the same. It's easier for anyone to follow who has to implement the ordinance. So there's that. The first big one is looking at the role of the Human Rights Commission. So there's a section in there, 2-434. You guys have probably seen it in the annual report. We talk about it. There's like a list A through F of your roles as a commission. And there's also this other section, 2-434, 2-435. 434 talks about your community engagement responsibilities. 435 talks about your systemic issue responsibilities. What we're trying to do is kind of mush that stuff all into 434, so that, or I'm sorry, 433, so that you can see how all your main roles relate to those other subsections. There didn't seem to really be a reason to have them all subdivided out. Just so you can see it in one place, makes more sense to the public as well. We've consolidated that. So when you look at, again, for members of the public who are watching this, the agenda packet has the full draft version with all these edits in it, in the agenda packet. Right now, we're just kind of talking about those sections. So you can, this is referring to those particular sections. You can look at them in detail there. And then one of the things that we wanted to raise, because it's one of those things we've talked about, I think, a couple of times, and every time I bring the ordinance up for review, I just want to make sure where you guys are at on it. There's a section that talks about a research project requirement for the commission, right? Once every 2 years, you will execute a research project, which is, and granted, I think we kind of do that work. You could stretch it to say, and it's worded vaguely enough that you say, yeah, we're working on an issue. Is it a research project? I don't know. But I think that I would love you guys to weigh in on whether or not that seems like a reasonable expectation for a volunteer commission to take on. Or if you want to redefine that, what that means. So
What's the derivation of it?
where did it come from?
Uh-huh.
A community member suggested it and council adopted it. It was kind of abruptly suggested, like,
We didn't really get to weigh in on that
No, we
particular
didn't. It was
suggestion.
only
We had suggested other amendments. This got added and somehow it got kind of just accepted whole.
It was a very late ad. I remember like it either would have gotten voted on and approved, or we would have had to like wait several months
yeah.
for council to vote
Yeah.
on it again, and it was still like, oh, we'll do research.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's strictly defined, it's a lot to ask of a commission when the staff that supports the commission is like pretty darn busy doing the day-to-day work of the office. So I would be much more comfortable if it said research project or other something.
I would love to change the will to a may. That
That's
would give us the possibility of doing such a thing, like doing research purposes of investigation or, just generating knowledge. Which I think is the general definition I'm using for research.
Right.
But it doesn't require us to do it.
That's what I was gonna suggest, that we leave it within the scope of our activities, but not make it a requirement with a
It's
time.
within our authority, but not a requirement.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'm gonna make a note of that and we can include that as a suggestion in there. Thanks for the weighing in on that. And to be clear, I'm giving you a very general overview. The expectation tonight is that you would have read the whole thing.
Yeah.
And are gonna give me detailed feedback. There's time for this. We're gonna present it sometime later. I think on our work plan, we have it up for consideration for adoption in July. Is it in June? June 20th, the June 20th meeting. If that doesn't feel like enough time, we can move that up. Mostly what I'm just thinking about is I want you to get familiar with it now, so you have some time to review it. If you need more time, let me know. We'll get it in front of council when the time is right. Cause I think this time around, I wanna get it right. I don't wanna take it to HUD and be like, there's one more thing that you need to do. We wanna get it correct this time and also incorporate what you guys see fit to incorporate.
I like the research side of it.
Mhm.
In this point, meaning that I love the may,
Mhm.
but I also want to make sure that there's something in there that directs us to be studying, getting information
Mhm.
for whatever objectives or whatever how should I say this?
Focus area?
Focus area, yes, that we are approaching.
Mhm.
That whoever is in this position has a focus area.
Yep.
And they will do the research or whatever they need to do
Mhm.
to do that work. So I think not having that in, you can kind of do.
When you
really
say
not.
research, do you mean even, I'm
doesn't-
guessing you're
it
saying
doesn't-
it broadly, like us bringing the panel in
Yeah,
is
it-
research,
it-
us better
well, yes,
understanding
some-
and
yeah.
learning, yeah.
And it doesn't have to be research per se, but
Right.
Something that says you will have a focus area that will help you focus or drive your work as a commission.
Yes, I've heard that's pretty important. I know you said that to me early on when we first met.
We gotta have something.
Yeah.
Yes,
Disagree with you, Ernest. I do
Yeah.
think that's important. I'm not sure it's something that goes in a bylaw, though.
okay,
That's, to me, it feels like something like how we operationalize our work. We should do that, but I don't know. It's not the kind of thing I usually see in a bylaw.
okay.
I don't know how other people feel.
I think Catherine's right about that. I think the ordinance is sort of your sort of overarching, like, what is your mandate? Whereas the focus area thing may be more, we do have rules and procedures. And I think there's a section in there about our annual meeting.
Okay.
And I think we've already made some revisions to that. That might be one to add into there when we're gonna develop a work plan with a focus area. I think that's a great, because that's your kind of your guidance document for how we do the work. This is kind of the, what are you going to do? Like, what is the scope of your work?
Okay, cool. I'm just expressing that, want to make,
That's a good point.
and hear that,
Yeah.
and I received what you said, and I agree. So I just, so if that's covered and somewhere else within what we do, then great. I just want to make sure that if we're not here and this commission is still alive, that there is a focus. So.
Note that. And we can, if at any point, Ernest, you want to propose like an amendment to the rules and procedures, either before, we could do it before, long before we get to the ordinance in front of council. You can add that to the rules and procedures. I think the requirement in the rules and procedures is we present the proposed changes in writing to the commission at least 5 days in advance of their consideration. And then, so as long as we get it out in advance, we can even just send that separately by email to everyone and then include it in the agenda packet. You can do that. So, yeah, great. So that being said, oh, you already did it. So on top of it. So those section 2-434 and 2-435, we took the commission stuff out of there, repurposed these sections for the office. And so in the ordinance, there's a section that talks about like, what is the commission? And then what is the role of the commission? We figured we'd structure the discussion about the office in the same fashion, right? What is the office? And then what is the role of the office? Just to make that sort of read clearly for the public and anybody who's using this as a guidance document. So that's one thing we did. I think staff had suggested we should probably put in there that director may hire additional staff as approved by city manager to fulfill the duties within the ordinance. It didn't say that anywhere. So yeah, sure, we want to be able to fulfill our positions now that we have a full team, which is really kind of momentous for us in the evolution of the office. So and then, yeah, I think the other thing that we changed in the Office of Human Rights piece in terms of our roles was to define the outreach in language that also mirrored what's in the commission's work around systemic issues and community engagement. Just because, that's kind of a how do we explain it? It's a joint role that we hold, and we need to collaborate on addressing systemic issues. So we want to make sure that the language looks the same between those two sections so that the connection is clear. Great, okay. So this discussion on this section is a couple of slides, just because the changes that we made to these sections also apply to the housing section for investigations, as well as the public accommodation credit private education section. So one of the things we did in this, and this is taking a little bit from working on the substantial equivalence part for the housing stuff, is we subdivided these sections into complaints and answers, further action, alternative dispute resolution, investigation, and reasonable cause determination and effect, because that's how housing section does it in federal law. And so we said, well, if we have to have that in that section, let's mirror that in the other sections. So when an investigator or whomever staff person is reading how to do these investigations, it looks similar in all those sections. So in any case, we won't go through this in huge detail, but what we're trying to do is make sure that we have updated filing processes that we've kind of adopted over time, now reflected in the ordinance. Also want to have a clause in there that addresses when a current or former commissioner is party to an inquiry of discrimination, because we didn't have anything about that in there. When we talk about the further action section, we wanted to make sure that we have information there about the aggrieved individual has a responsibility to provide us updated contact information. We've had problems in the past where we get in touch with somebody, we collect a bunch of information, and then they disappear, and then we can't proceed with the work. And then we have to close cases. So we just want to make sure that's clear in there. And then we also, kind of similar to that, making sure that we have a procedure for what we do when we have complainants and respondents being non-responsive to requests for information, how we handle those cases. So basic stuff like that. In the next slide, yep. Again, we consolidated all the information about mediation, conciliation, and informal dialogue into an alternative dispute resolution section. Just makes that easier to find and follow. And for the investigation piece, we really beefed up the subpoena power, looking at some of the ordinances in the Northern Virginia offices. One of the things that they had in their ordinance that we did not was the ability to subpoena witness testimony. We could subpoena documents and written evidence, things like that. But now we can request we can request the city attorney to solicit the court for a subpoena for both the written documentary evidence, but as well as witness testimony. So that's really valuable because we've had cases where people just refused to be a witness and they were key. That would have been really helpful to be able to talk to them and get their testimony. So
Is that limited to the investigation of individual complaints, or can that power be used for sort of more general systemic issues?
it's a great question. So in this section, as it applies to this section, it's tailored towards
Yeah.
investigation. If you read that section, I think it stipulates that it's attached to that section in regards to the investigation. In the commission's enforcement power piece, which we'll get to as well, there is also a subpoena piece. It doesn't talk about witness testimony, and that's a big question that I have for you guys as well about what is the appropriate use of that? Like, when do we use that? So yeah, I think that's something to consider, because it's right now subpoena ducis tecum for documentary evidence as it currently reads, not witness testimony.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there thinking behind having this clause I see it as being for individual employment discrimination complaints, but
Yes.
not for housing discrimination complaints and not
So-
okay,
Yeah,
is that right?
no, so we are in the section that we're currently in, which is 2-437.1. That is solely about employment discrimination. There's a 2-437.2 that's housing, and 2-437.3, which is public accommodation, credit, and private education. They all have that same clause
They
in
do.
there. Yeah.
Okay,
We just make sure it's in each section. And one of the reasons we subdivide those, when in the old ordinance, when it was first passed in 2013, all investigation procedures for all protected activities were in one section. But right now, when we started moving toward the substantial equivalence for the FAP work share, we had to subdivide because we had to really isolate that housing stuff to make sure that it was clear to HUD
that we had all the things in there that they wanted. And so now there's some repetition in there, but that's okay, because if something changes in federal fair housing law, we want to be able to change it in that section and not affect all the other ones, or if something changes in state law that affects employment or one of the other protected activities, we can augment those without messing up our substantial equivalents for fair housing. I'm sorry, that's so confusing.
No, I
Yeah.
think that you probably addressed it, and then I asked you, and I was like, but yes, that is very clarifying, thank
Cool,
you.
yeah, no, this has been this huge evolution of this document, but in any case, those are the two slides about the employment investigation. The next one, we'll just talk a little bit about the changes that we made to the housing investigation piece. So like I was mentioning, we incorporated those revisions from the thing we just talked about in employment. The major ones about updated intake and filing procedures, expanded subpoena authority, the thing about people letting us know about their contact information and putting time limits on responses, things like that. That's all in the housing section as well. The other interesting thing that HUD called to our attention was we have this sort of deferential request for authority for certain sections, like for judicial review, a few other things that I can't remember off the top of my head, that were in that section. And HUD didn't like the fact that we couldn't directly request those things of the city attorney's office. So we had to remove the deputy city manager kind of chain of command out of that. I think in HUD's view, for substantial equivalence, the agency that's doing the investigative work has to be able to be a self-contained unit. That's not to say that we're not going to consult with city management and the attorney's office before we take a big action like that, but they need to see a clear line of authority to do that. So we took those references out. Let's see. Yeah, in any case, yeah, the other piece there, yeah, we made some other minor revisions that they wanted to see for substantial equivalence. They're not really substantive for the function of investigation by our view, but there are things that they wanted to see just to make sure that we were in alignment with what federal fair housing law has to say. So there's that. You can read all that section if you want to. It's all color coded. Look at the top of the ordinance to understand all of our different rainbow of fruit flavors in the ordinance, but it makes sense if you read it that way. Let's see, so 2-437.3, thank you, Lily. That section again is for public accommodation credit, private education. That again mirrors those changes we made in employment and housing sections that are general to all procedures. We replicated all those things here. So if you read those 2-4371 and 2-4373, they'll read almost exactly the same because they can have the same procedures basically. So you'll just see the change in the reference to what is protected in terms of protected activity in those sections. So there's that. Any questions on any of this so far? Sounds like it's making sense. Okay. 2-438. So we just wanted to bulk up the section about retaliation and to make sure that we had a mechanism for people to file a retaliation complaint. And so when people file a retaliation complaint, it is associated with a complaint that is already filed with the office on a protected activity and basis. So if somebody files a housing discrimination complaint on the basis of disability and their landlord says, I'm evicting you for having filed that complaint, that's retaliation. They can file a separate complaint in association with the complaint they've already filed. And so we created a mechanism for that to happen. And I can say we have one of those already. So going on, we had to create that procedure. So now we want to codify it in our ordinance. So so there's that. This next one is kind of the one I really want you guys to think about. And when you're reading the ordinance over, I would love it if you would take a look at this section and maybe give us some feedback on it. I'll try to explain it in shorthand here. That's why I made this chart. But it's complicated, and what we're proposing is different than we've had before. So in our current ordinance, if we do an investigation, and I'm gonna go kind of through that first column in the chart there. If we do an investigation and find no reasonable cause, right? We dismiss the case because the evidence doesn't point to the fact that discrimination occurred under the ordinance. The complainant can appeal to the commission for review of that decision. okay? And I think that's good. We want people to have, there needs to be a check and balance, like I shouldn't have the authority to just make a decision and it's final. You all should have the ability to review that. And I think we keep that across the board if we make any changes. The one thing we've been talking with the city attorney's office about is what is the possibility for having an appeal on findings of reasonable cause? So when there's no reasonable cause, the complainant disagrees with that finding, they can appeal to you for review of that decision. If there's reasonable cause found, the respondent really has no recourse to ask for an appeal. And we're wondering if that might be something you'd want to consider. I have not seen that happen in other localities, but the idea of due process for both parties seems like a fair thing to do. Now, that said, you do currently in this ordinance have, you don't have that authority right now, you could have that authority. Okay, next piece is, if there's a finding of reasonable cause, you do currently have the authority to vote on whether or not to hold a public hearing on the case, okay? If you do that, then in some fashion, and as ordinance currently reads, there is sort of a way that the respondent could sort of appeal the decision by defending it in front of you. If you read the ordinance as it currently stands, you're kind of doing like a mock court. So there's, they can introduce new evidence, they can cross-examine witnesses, they can bring their attorneys. You have to have a whole procedure to deal with that event if it were to happen.
And this would be done publicly?
This would all be done publicly. I have actually questions. The ordinance does not contemplate the confidentiality of that process. And when we finally disclose names and details and all that stuff, I need to know that because the ordinance doesn't tell us that. And so what I'm wondering about is this hearing on findings of reasonable cause. So this, in this middle gray bar, I'm wondering if that's a procedure that you want to have, or if you'd rather have just a review of record kind of ability. So, for example, if we do a finding of reasonable cause and the complainant, the respondent appeals, do they get to introduce all this new evidence and call in attorneys and have a big kind of thing, in which everybody you have to have a procedure for that? Or do you just want to review the record, review the actual investigative report and render a finding of whether you uphold the decision or overturn it and send it back to us for further investigation with the questions that you have? So these are the things I want you to contemplate.
So I have a question about,
Yeah.
so on the reasonable cause, I mean, like, there is a right to appeal, it just would be at the end of the process. So you're saying you want to have an opportunity for appeal sort of at, like, in federal court, maybe like the 12B6 standard, like once you, like the pleading, like you look at the papers and you say, is this
Yeah.
like sufficient as an allegation?
Yeah,
Because it's not true that they don't have a right to appeal, it's just they don't have a right to appeal in the middle of the case.
right, and it's not, and again, it's not in the middle, it would be after the rendering of finding in either situation, right? And I guess the difference would be, is if you all didn't vote to hold a public hearing on it, cause there could be a finding of reasonable cause. And I give you guys, here's the report on that finding, and you all go, okay. And the respondent's like, what? Nuh-uh, I wanna appeal that decision, right? That gives them the opportunity to do that. If you did hold a public hearing on it and you're just reviewing the report and rendering a finding on whether the report, you uphold the decision or not based on the report, that is kind of sort of an appeal, but it's not generated by them. It's you guys are sort of just reviewing to see if it was fairly done, and investigated properly.
Yeah, I guess I just suggest that there is due process, even if you don't have the opportunity to appeal sort of in that early stage, like there still is an opportunity to have it reviewed. It's
Still an
just later in you have to go through a process to get there.
And it's also like, is it initiated by the respondent requesting it, or is it initiated by the commission deciding whether or not you want to review it?
Right.
Yeah, I think that's something to just ponder.
Okay.
And then the other two things at the bottom there, just that idea of, do you want to add and I'll just say it this way, the additional complexity of allowing either party to introduce new evidence, cross-examine bring attorneys, all that stuff? Or do you want it to be more of a review of record? I think you're always gonna start with a review of record because you need to familiarize yourself with the case. The question is, do you then, based on that review of record, say, okay, yeah, we wanna hear the whole thing, like from start to finish with all this new evidence, process all that, and then manage kind of the attorney interaction with the cross-examination, all that stuff in this room? Or do you just wanna say, we did a review of record and we uphold it? Or we say, no, we don't agree with that, and we think that director, you and the team need to go back and do better job with this piece of it and go get us evidence and bring it back to us again, and then we'll talk about it again. That's a big question for me, because I think that would require some training, because we've never done this. And a really solid process so that we don't mismanagement and give people a good process. Yeah.
So for the non-lawyers in the room,
Yeah.
anyway, but I am curious, like, how are other, like, when you were talking about, like, we look at the record, send it back to you, like, we don't agree, or we do agree, or
Yeah.
whatever, versus we are setting up for, lack of better, like, we're setting up a courtroom in here.
Yeah.
And I know, as you said, like, that's, a ton of training, et cetera. I think my question is this how other human rights commissions, because that's a lot of, not that we don't have a lot of power, but that's a lot of power, and also, like, I'm just trying to figure out, like, what is the norm, what is the best practice, or what are other,
Yeah, that's a great question. So in reading other ordinances, they do have something similar to this. It seems like that there are sometimes some limitations as to what can be introduced. I was reading Fairfax's today. I'm probably gonna take a look at the other ones in Northern Virginia just to see what the variation is, but I think they all have something sort of akin to what we currently have with varying degrees of scope, I guess I would say.
I'm sorry, I'm confused by that.
Yeah.
What do we have currently have? Since we've never, I don't know what that.
Never done it.
Do we have the hearing or do we have the record focus?
Yeah, so you currently have sort of a hearing focused model without the ability for a respondent to file an appeal.
I'm just
Yeah,
making sure about that. I will say, I mean, I don't know what other people think, but I am peripherally connected to kind of things like this.
Yeah.
And have seen it in both forms
Mhm.
and really dislike the hearing focused format in a non-tribunal,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
Yeah.
I just, it,
thanks, yeah. And
but I would love to hear what other.
Well, does this review of records, does that allow them to introduce new evidence after the finding? They can introduce new evidence and we will consider that, just not in the context of a hearing, or they don't get to appeal in that way?
it's a good question. So as it currently stands, we don't have a review of record. We have the full hearing thing. And so they can introduce all sorts of new stuff. They can bring witnesses, they can do all the things.
Right.
What I'm wondering about and kind of postulating to you is, do you want to limit that in some fashion? Because we can rewrite the ordinance such that that doesn't happen, because and I'm, trying not to be too opinionated about it, but I fear for the fact that you would have to manage all of that incoming evidence, deal with the witnesses, deal with the sort of rules and procedures around cross-examination, all that stuff.
A lot.
Yeah, and I think you could put a buffer there by saying, we're gonna review the investigative report and say, and then the finding and go, yeah, that seems okay, or no, you're missing this here, why don't you go back? We're gonna overturn that ruling and say, go back and investigate these things. I think the key is thinking about what remedies can you provide in any case, right? Like, you could have this whole big procedure where you introduce evidence and cross-examine, but in the end, your ability to do anything concrete afterward is the same, right? You can't award damages, you can't issue injunctive orders. You can't there's no way to award, put fines on people, and there's nothing, none of that stuff exists, right? It's still, your basic thing is to you can recommend further actions, to council, you can recommend, that the respondent do a thing if you uphold the finding a reasonable cause, so it's like, why go through all that if the same remedies are available, I guess, that's the question.
So if it's a review of record, then are you as the investigator making sort of findings about who is the most credible witness, right? Like,
Yeah, that's a good
So
question.
that would be, like, that would just be in the written report and like, right?
Yeah, so what would happen is, so, and Shiloh would be the investigator in the current setup that we have, so the way it would work is that the investigator completes the investigation, writes a report, hands it to me now. I read her report and I say, okay, based on what you presented in the evidence, I render a finding of no reasonable cause and dismiss, or reasonable cause. And then if I have a finding of reasonable cause, I present a report to you, and you, under the current ordinance, would read this and go, should we hold a public hearing on the matter to either further, some recommendations about systemic issues that may emerge from this case, or to just, we want to read it and decide whether or not we agree with your decision, that kind of thing. You have the prerogative to vote on whether or not to hold a public hearing on a finding of reasonable cause. Yeah, so that's kind of how it currently works.
And how many times has this occurred?
We've had one appeal, to my knowledge, one appeal to a case, and I think the person came in person and showed up and defended themselves, and they upheld the decision that there was no reasonable cause.
And that's one of my other concerns, not just us managing the process,
Yeah,
but I assume that often the respondent comes with a lawyer. And the
Yes.
complainant may not. MSC's ability to hire a lawyer is probably greater than.
yeah, and this is a good point. We talked about this, I think, a few years ago, right? When we were talking about representation for people in eviction cases, right? And I had mentioned that, yeah, there's kind of a parallel issue
Yeah,
of.
landlords have lawyers and
Yeah,
tenants don't have
Yeah,
lawyers.
and this happens in employment cases, this happens in, other cases as well, is that complainants rarely have the means to lawyer up unless they can find somebody to do pro bono, whereas the respondent often has an attorney. And so I think that would be a similar conundrum during a public hearing, is that you might have somebody show up with their attorney and another person be unrepresented in a public hearing. And that would be, I think, inequitable,
Right.
to say the least, and if not, really difficult to manage.
I was gonna say, it goes against how we.
Yes.
Yeah,
So the same thing would be true in presenting the evidence to the investigator, right? Like the person with the lawyer would still be able to, to put forward the information in a compelling way, like
They-
subject to, rules of evidence or whatever it is that we are looking at.
Yeah, to a degree, although I think that we try to interview people directly as much as possible and not have a lawyer. When I've had lawyers in the room, they've usually been silent and they just listen to make sure that their person doesn't go towards doing something crazy, I guess, but I haven't had it to the point where the information is completely restricted and not available for, and again, we can still subpoena, request for a subpoena to be issued to get testimony and documents around that whole thing, so yeah. So that chart there is just, again, just to sort of help you wrap your mind around what's in the revised draft right now is the whole shebang, the thing in the middle, right? What would it look like if you had all the powers, right? And all the responsibilities that come along with that. And then you can contemplate, if you were to extract any one of those things, what would it be? Or refine or narrow down, again, right now it has the whole cross-examination, introduction of evidence, all that's in there. We could strike that and reduce it to a review of record with whatever modifications you think would be best. I'm interested in hearing your opinions on that. You've shared some already, which is great, but I encourage you to read it, think about it a little bit more, because it's a big one.
It is a big one.
Yeah. give it a little time, yeah. Cause we've been thinking about it a lot too, and I'm not sure I know the answer, but I think I lean, if you ask my opinion, I'm gonna give it to you anyway. I lean towards the review of record thing just because I think it's more, it's more manageable.
I do too.
Yeah, so, and if that's kind of the general consensus, we could draft a section that looked that way and then represent that to you sometime in the future so you could take a gander at it, but, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think, any other questions?
This is great.
This is the first time I've presented about the ordinance without having the ordinance on the screen, so it was kind of interesting. I hope it made sense
No,
without
and
actually seeing
I
the
would be,
ordinance.
well, I was able to follow along in the ordinance too, so yeah. That's great. And thanks for the cleanup as well.
What's that?
Thanks for cleaning it up too,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
And making it like easier for people to, I guess, is the table of contents something that, you know, if I'm an interested party, I can just click and go to, like, click on the table of contents and it takes me down to.
I don't know if in Municode, it probably won't do that, and
Right,
the other
right.
thing we do with these documents is we make them ADA accessible. And that
Right.
function of like indexed table of contents where you click on it, it goes to the thing, doesn't pass muster with the ADA
Oh.
checker, so.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, unfortunately, but it would be nice, to make it
Okay.
easier. But yeah, credit where credit is due. So Jenny helped a ton on working with me to revamp all this ordinance stuff, cause it's just super tedious to do this. When we present it to council, we then will draft a memo that goes along with all the changes too. So she's been helping a ton with that. Lily's been helping me a ton with some of the most recent edits. She constructed most of this PowerPoint for us the other day, which was helpful. We realized we needed a PowerPoint because it would be an easier way to present to you, and it's also a good chance for us to just be able to consolidate this information for council as well. So
That's great.
good practice on that. So thanks team. Yay.
Team,
Yeah. Anyway,
That's a lot of work.
thank you all.
yeah, sorry it's taking a long time because I think the last one we
Jenny
passed
was
was in
listening.
2022. So yeah, it's taking us a while to get to this point again, but we're getting very, very close to having something we can actually present. So great.
Thank you, Todd. That
Thank you,
was
Todd.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Lily and everyone.
Yes. Tom, Lily, and Jenny. Is that everything about the ordinance review?
I think so. Yep, for now.
Letter B in the work session is planning for our first expert panel.
So I can, if it would be helpful, share the organizations we've gotten responses from.
Okay.
We have confirmed participation from Home to Hope, Blue Ridge Area Coalition for the Homeless, the NAACP, and Democratic Socialists of America. We are waiting for confirmation from Region 10. LAJC will not be here at the meeting, but they will be sharing recommendations with us later on in the summer when they have them available. And Central Virginia Legal Aid Society cannot participate.
Were we not doing Livable Seville? Did we decide not? We already did like at a previous hearing? Oh, okay.
Yeah, them and Haven.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had it before.
And I did get one update from Region 10. We were talking to the Director of Housing Programs at Region 10. He can't do it that day because he's got another commitment, but he also suggested I can reach out to some of the other wraparound service leaders there at Region 10, of which I know a few. If you'd like, I can kind of put together a short list of them and see if any of them are available.
If someone could show up, that'd be awesome.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Which night is the expert panel?
June 6th,
Six.
which will be at Carver.
Oh, yep, yep,
That's graduation.
yep.
And is that subject to the same rules of virtual attendance that if you're gonna be out of town? I happen to have a work trip that week, so.
Yeah, yeah.
can-
You
But I
can
would love to, I'll send you a note and ask for official
Yes.
permission to
Yeah.
participate virtually.
do the little, where's the little thing? It's on the website.
Yeah.
Go to the commission.
I'll be in Atlanta. It's more
Yeah.
than, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
10 miles
Just
from here.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Take the night train back. I'll be away too. So
I'll try and participate.
Um,
they record them.
any more questions about the And do we need to plan anything for that other than we know that we're gonna be in Carver? We're gonna definitely need some virtual stuff as well.
We get an updated calendar invite, because it says we're. I can't edit it.
Oh, yeah, let me do that. I'm not even sure that it has updated for everybody who's now on the commission. Cause I send it to the main email. Let me do that.
Sorry, it's 6/6, right? Okay.
6/6, yeah, thanks. I don't think I'd change that one, so let me update this one. Before I send to everyone. Thank you for that note.
I just went to the wrong place last week.
You did?
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I came busting into something.
Cause it said city
here.
space.
Yeah, with my bike and I was
City
waiting,
budget.
and I was like, these are the wrong people.
Cracking the system there. Thank you for pointing that out this time.
There's city council.
It was probably right on my, I just didn't see it, but.
Okay, I just updated that to Carver Recreation Center.
Okay, great.
Watched me.
In July, we need to do some planning for the legislative priorities panel for the month of July. You guys have any, so you said we're gonna hear from
LAJC.
yes, LEJC.
Yes, I'm not sure if they're planning to end the meeting or if they're planning to just send you their recommendations.
That'd be awesome. They could just, they could send us something for July. And then we need to reach out to Christina Colson. Is that right?
Katrina.
Katrina, sorry, Katrina
Yep.
Colson and
Credit.
Creed, yep.
I was gonna ask you all too, would it be of interest to you for me to reach out to either chairs or directors of other commissions in the state to see what legislative things they're bringing to their council so that we can maybe get behind some of those?
That would be.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree. It's a good idea.
I'll ask and see if they could
they're
join.
Thank you.
And if they can't join, maybe I can see if they have a list of the things that they're thinking about as well. Yeah.
If you could put something in writing, that'd be great.
Did you reach out to Home at all? They're based in Richmond, but they are the state Fair Housing Act, sort of enforcer, right?
Yep, we just talked to them the other day, actually,
Okay.
Mariah and Brenda.
Yeah, well, and Brenda lives here, so
Mhm.
if they want to participate, that,
We could ask them to
Is
come.
that the legislative part?
they do legislative stuff, but they also just do enforcement of Fair Housing Act, so. Even though they're a statewide organization, I think they might have some interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're talking a little bit about collaboration on the source of funds systemic
Yeah.
issue that we've been talking about. And I think there's interesting collaboration on the research that Shael is doing into that issue, because they are also interested in maybe get some of their investigators to work together with us and maybe even do some testing and things like that as well. So, yeah, could be good. But yeah, that seems like a good invitation.
Somebody's having fun up there.
Yeah, it sounded like it.
Oh, I think it's
As well.
just.
Oh, I think there's bass going on behind
Wait, okay,
us.
all right.
We've got your children.
I'm just gonna.
We got a full band going on.
cars.
I could swear I just heard thunder too.
It could be the cars.
I think,
Or the- in the
yeah,
cars,
yeah,
yeah.
you never know, yep.
Cause I gotta walk a long way tomorrow.
No thunder, it's clear today. Tomorrow, worry about rain tomorrow, yeah, tonight we're fine.
We need to do a work plan check-in.
It seems to think it's.
Yeah, so let's see, we can pull this up. I don't know how hard it would be to share the screen.
I can do that.
Maybe
without
not.
it.
Say while you're doing that every time I look at the work plan, it just makes me so happy to see everything so clearly laid out. Seriously, like, I think it might be my love language, but
Calendars are your.
like calendars, things like
It is really nice.
the knowing what's coming up, right? Like to have a sense of, and I also think it feels more planned than last year, which also I think gives a better sense of like the work, where we're heading
Yes.
as a group. So,
Glad to hear that.
yeah, no, I love it.
Thanks, Lily.
Please ignore the volume.
So we are in May.
It's busy.
So we're finalizing the panel list. We've talked about, we need to do outreach to those that we want to bring for the legislative agenda panel in July. I have not talked to anybody in the community about reparations yet. I will do that. What is with staff, have you guys collaborated or talked to anybody about Ally? I know there's been some talk about that. What was the meeting?
We had a meeting on Monday, Women's Initiative, Hyacinth Bellarose is doing a 6-week training for community members, mostly ally training, but it's like thorough and beautiful and wonderful. And then Charlie, myself, Hyacinth are kind of comparing a bunch of curriculums that are floating around. One was just created by HRC alum Lindell back in the day, a decade ago, amazing. And trying to update said trainings so that we
Okay.
can offer that to the community and some for them. Also trying to figure out like who are the various actors who are already offering said training, because there's a couple people already working in the space.
All right, so here's the thing with having this great chart and things up there is, when we talk about things and we, like we finalized the panel list, how do we check that off? How do we star that? To say that that's being done, how do we, so that, or the fact that there has been talks about the Ally Safe Space Training. So,
Outcome.
yeah, there's,
Outcome.
either outcome or something.
Outcomes has
Yeah.
next steps.
Yeah, so we gotta figure out a way to make sure that, it's not just listed there, but we
Yep.
know that there has been some work
We could add that in.
done.
I always just have it, maybe into parentheses after, what I'm doing, like, it's in process, contacted this person. I have everything,
Current status.
yeah,
The things that
my list.
that you get done actually get recorded into a work record. So Ginny and Lily and I work on that mostly. So for example, like on 5/6/2024, we had the meeting with
Yeah,
the
okay,
Women's Initiative. And so all that'll show up in the annual report.
okay.
Even your outreach on the 10th
Oh, yeah.
on the downtown hall is in there. So we do record that, but it might be, so it's it's the last
In
little
that,
work
okay,
summary and
okay.
but if it would be helpful, we could integrate it into this thing, just so you could see it happening
Yeah.
live. So let me make a note of that.
Showing our accomplishments.
Yeah, my favorite thing is to
It's happening
check off.
already.
Yeah,
Yeah,
check
make
off
it
things like
fun.
done
There's-
or,
Yeah.
in
I love that,
process.
which also
Doing
includes
it.
getting things done, yes.
Love a checklist.
Love a checklist.
Yeah,
Like,
awesome.
let's take, there's a whole book about checklists. and everything.
Oh, you're just gonna cross it through, like you're done? Yeah,
I will do whatever is helpful.
yeah, well, how would it look?
I mean,
Maybe a check
I was thinking-
mark.
I don't know, that looks like we crossed it off.
Yeah.
Like, we're
I
like,
like,
oh,
I
we're gonna
really
really
like,
micromanage
I was
you,
thinking
right?
stars or checks.
We'll come up.
Three
We'll come
separate
up-
options that we can review at the next meeting.
Color coded, color coded.
Okay.
I think that'll take up enough for a work session.
Like a little simple check
We'll
mark.
come
I
up
don't
with it on the
know
next-
for you, Lily.
Okay, we have complete confidence
Or
that
just
you will do
done.
this perfect.
Or you can just say done.
As long as we have something
Yeah,
at the
done.
bottom to let
Done.
us know
Done.
what the.
Done works for me.
What the symbols mean.
Okay.
Oh my God. Don't do that.
Too much.
Make it Greek.
We'll come up with something,
Okay.
yeah.
There you go, done.
Oh, you
yeah.
can just put done.
We'll do a good,
Done
you'll
in
do a good job,
progress,
we know that.
yeah, like, yeah.
Yeah,
Done, not done.
Awesome.
cool. We might even be able to change the bullet to a check mark or something like that, something like that.
Ooh.
I don't know, we'll see. We'll figure it out.
I think.
I
we-
got the side eye. on that.
Oh, my, okay, let me get Todd out of the. We have confirmation that we are meeting on June the sixth.
Yes.
At Culver.
Yeah.
Okay,
For a work session, do we need a forum for a work session?
Do you call
We're
it?
not gonna vote on
You don't vote on
it.
anything.
We're not voting.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
We don't even put minutes on the work sessions, we just hold those to the next regular.
I will not be at the June 20th, which
Okay.
that's a regular meeting, correct?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Which we need to adopt ordinance amendments.
I know.
Hopefully, I mean,
Yeah, school need forum.
if we get that far, part of the thing, and I'll, not to jump back to the ordinance first, but
That's okay.
just to let you know, because you brought that up. One of the things that I want to do before you adopt it is make sure that we may do another review of it since we're gonna make some changes. I gotta get it in front of HUD and city attorney's office again before you guys can adopt it anyway, so
That's a lot of.
it may not. Sometimes it happens, it's sort of surprising, but yeah, I don't know what HUD's schedule is and I don't know what.
Do we even have any city attorney's office?
Rob Hubbard is our liaison in the city attorney's office, and he actually met with us this week, right before we got this thing finalized, to get it on the agenda, so it was very good. So we do have support there, thank you.
Right. New business, we have any new business? Not that I know of.
We did the new business out of order.
We did,
did.
we did, yeah, we did, but I felt like, I'm sorry if I did out of order and.
Not-
No, no,
Robert
good.
and Murray and everybody upset, because it's not. No, Mary, is it Mary
Martha.
rules, Martha's rules? Mary and Martha, I mean, Martha and Robert, yeah, are not happy with the order, so. But I felt like
Yes.
there was more.
It's really just about getting things done without getting too bogged down in the details, so
It's nice.
I think Martha's okay.
Martha's okay, okay. I just
Martha's
wanted-
better than Robert.
Robert.
Yeah, for sure.
Get Robert out of here.
That is by the public,
We do not have any
Awesome.
virtual attendees.
Thank you.
or
all right,
attendees.
commissioners respond, nope, there's no commissioner, commission updates. All right. What's going on?
But you have a very spiffy jacket.
You do look
I had-
really sharp today. I was
The
thinking
fashion is really
also.
I had
right
another, there was I was part of a search committee, we had someone come in today.
It's not for us?
No.
Okay.
Well, you look very nice.
You look sharp.
Thank you very much.
I like the
You
color
can give- I
coordination,
think you can
especially
give
between like
lessons
the
to our
peach.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Pocket square.
Pocket Squares classic.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you.
This is on the record. by the way.
I don't know why people are not watching the hearing. This is scintillating.
Is there a motion to?
Right, it's coupled with some style conversation.
Oh, my goodness, if there are no further comments, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You.
Oh, goodness. Wow, we kind of went like this tonight.
Are we,
Step back.